You're now watching Wayback Wednesday, sponsored by Flora's Glass and Mirror Company, servicing the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.
Good evening, friends, and welcome to another episode of Wayback Wednesday. I'm Randy Adcock. So glad you could join us tonight. Welcome to the broadcast. Tonight's show is not really on any particular theme. We're going to look at some pictures, and most of these are from the 1960s and 70s. I do have a few going back to 1956 and 57. And I've got one, the very first one, in fact, that goes all the way back to 1925. So I don't expect any of you to recognize any of these people. You may have heard some of the names before, particularly you that have been around a little longer than the rest of us. But as I was looking for pictures for tonight's show, I stumbled across this picture that appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram in 1965. And there's nothing particular about it that jumped out at me, but it was a group of gentlemen, obviously distinguished, and the caption just said, "City Leaders in 1925," and there's a little bit of a write-up beneath it, so I'll read that to you in a minute. But this picture and the little write-up appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram, as I said, in 1965, and it was a look back, 40 years back, to some very prominent Rocky Mount citizens in 1925. So Lee, if you would, let's put this first picture up on the screen for our viewers here. And this picture was actually taken in 1925, and so you can imagine the photography equipment that was around at that time was not very good, obviously. The picture's a little grainy. It was a newspaper clipping that I captured. But I want to read this to you. Some of these names are family names that you will certainly recognize. I did, as being prominent citizens generation after generation after generation at Rocky Mount. But it starts off, says, "City Leaders in 1925. Most of these Rocky Mount leaders of 40 years ago have left life's stage, but their names remain known to perhaps more than was the case when this picture of the Board of Aldermen was made." We've talked before in the past, Rocky Mount now has 7 Rocky Mount City Council members. I'm not sure when the transition was made from city aldermen to city councilmen and councilwomen, pardon me. But in 1925, we had city aldermen. And so this was a picture of the Board of Aldermen, and it says in the front row are, left to right, Van S. Watson. Now, Van S. Watson, for those of you that may think that name sounds familiar, he went on to have a very illustrious political career. I believe he was a state senator. He went on to Washington, D.C., I think, in later years. Ironically, I had a great uncle by the name of Van Watson. Not this Van Watson, a different Van Watson altogether, my grandmother's brother. But this Van Watson, every time I've seen his name, I've seen it as Van S. Watson. And I've often wondered if he did that to differentiate himself from the other Van Watson, who, certainly was a fine fellow in his own right, but did not achieve the prominence that this Mr. Van S. Watson achieved in life. But anyway, Van S. Watson, Jack Johnson. At the time, the mayor was Mr. L.L. Gravely. And then there's J.L. Suter, R.C. Brake, Arthur Nelson, and M.D. Munn. On the back row, left to right, are J.Q. Robinson, Thomas W. Coleman, and I do believe that is the Coleman family that started and ran Nash Brick Company for a number of years. Anyway, Charles A. Thomas is next, and then I.W. Mangum. Then there's L.D. Harper and Mr. R.E. Boone. It goes on to say Watson, Robinson, Coleman, and Munn later held the office of mayor. So 4 of these gentlemen became mayor after their stint as a Rocky Mount City alderman. It said Suter is, and keep in mind this article was written in 1965 now, so it says Suter is president of a bank today in Roanoke Rapids. Thomas is retired, and Nelson, also retired, lives in Florida. The late H. Dempt, D-E-M-P-T, that's a name I've not heard before. The late H. Dempt took the picture, which was provided by Thomas, a retired tobacco man and mortician. So there's a job title for you, tobacco man and mortician. I just thought it was neat that many of these names I certainly recognize. over the last couple of years of doing this show, I've seen some of these names over and over and over again, and some of these family names certainly over and over and over again. And it's just kind of neat that some of these families kept producing leaders, certainly council aldermen and city aldermen and council members, mayors and business leaders, executives, bankers, and so forth, generation after generation, and of course that continues today. All right, picture number 2. You know, we've talked in the past about events and happenings that used to occur in and around Rocky Mount and sadly no longer occur. This picture was taken in 1956, and the caption says, "Galloping along, shown here is Miss Frances Gay at the Riding Academy located behind the city lake in Rocky Mount. This is another pastime provided by the city recreation department." I knew about the property back there behind the city lake. I used to know a family that lived back there, in fact. I did not, however, know anything about a city-sponsored riding academy. And as you can see, there's a horse there and a little girl sitting up on the little, there's a name for that kind of cart, and I forgot what it's called now. But anyway, this was, as I said, located back there behind the city lake. In later years, Mr. Bobby Gorham that built Terrytown Mall lived back there. If I'm not mistaken, there was a half a dozen or so homes back there. But in any case, the city of Rocky Mount in the 1950s, this picture was taken or appeared in the Telegram anyway in 1956, and it was talking about the riding academy that was sponsored by the city of Rocky Mount. But we got a call. Let's get this call. Hello, caller. You're on the air. Hello, caller. Hey.
How you doing?
Good. How you?
All right. Yeah, you talking about a property back there on City Lake?
Yeah.
Did you know Jimmy Taylor back there?
Was his daughter Paige?
Paige was his sister.
His sister. Okay. Yeah, I knew Paige. Paige
was a very, very fine young lady.
Yeah, I have lost track of her many years ago, but she was. I remember her. She was very popular and a great personality. I remember her well.
Yeah. Do you remember the old train that was back there? The old train car?
I sure do. I absolutely remember that thing.
We went over there one time, and we were little boys, and there was like somebody had said it was a Harley train.
Mm-hmm.
And it had been dug out of a canyon somewhere. That was the story. They put it down there, and we were over there walking around it one day, and these black street guys come out of nowhere and told us, "Get off that train."
Uh-oh.
It was so bad, we weren't running away from there, and them guys were just laughing. That was some, I didn't know if anybody, because you ask people now, do you remember the train? They go, "No, I don't remember that back there."
Yeah, it was there for a long time. It was an old Pullman car, as I remember, and I actually went inside that thing a few times myself.
Yeah, it was, there were fun days when they had the coal, the power plant was closed back then.
Right. That's right.
They had all the big coal mounds out there.
That's right.
We used to have coal fights out there.
Oh boy.
So that was fun time, man.
Yeah, man. Well, look, I appreciate the call. Okay. All right. Have a good night. Thanks again.
Thanks a lot.
All right, buddy. Have a good night. Yeah, that old train car was back there for many years, and the last time I looked, it was gone. I don't know when they took it out. It probably fell apart and had hollowed out in pieces. I don't know, but anyway, it was there for a long time. Okay, so anyway, this was from 1956, the Riding Academy, and it was sponsored by the City of Rocky Mount Recreation Department. So there's another neat little tidbit about our history here in Rocky Mount of events and happenings that used to be available to us and sadly are no longer an option. So, all right, Lou, let's go ahead then, if we could, to the next picture. This is from 1956 also. And you know, we've talked about the, the Nashville Harvest Festival. There was a Spring Hope Harvest Festival, I think. I've heard about one in Scotland Neck. I never knew that Westmount had a harvest festival. But in 1956, this picture appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram, and it was, I believe, the first Westmount Harvest Festival in November of 1956. I don't know how many years this continued or if this was the only year, so maybe some of you who remembers this and give us a call. 407-1111 is the number. But this was news to me to find out that little old Westmount had and it was a fairly nice article that was accompanying this picture. I didn't print the article off, but it made talk of, it talked about the community of Westmount, up and coming, and there was, obviously, we talked about over the years, Rocky Mount has had little areas where there was commerce, business and industry and different things, stores and so forth, and Westmount had its little share of that. And but they had a harvest festival, and they had a right good turnout, it appears from this picture anyway. And again, 1956, the Westmount Harvest Festival. Okay, Lee, let's take the next picture up if you could then. This next one was from 1957. I'm sorry, I almost skipped one. This is also from the same event, the same Westmount Harvest Festival, and identified this lady as Mrs. I can't pronounce her now. It looked like Octurus Joyner of Westmount Community, is shown with her prize-winning pepper plant shown at the first annual Westmount Harvest Festival. So the fact that she still had a pepper plant alive in November in this part of the state is pretty remarkable in and of itself. But in any case, she won. She won whatever they were judging pepper plants on the year. And I couldn't help but think about Aunt Bee and Mayberry RFD when I saw this picture and read this caption. Those of you that are Andy Griffith's fans like myself remember the county fairs and the different types of gardening events that Aunt Bee always entered, whether it was roses or making bad pickles or whatever. But when I saw this picture and read that caption, I immediately thought about Aunt Bee and Mayberry. But anyway, Westmount first annual Harvest Festival, and this was in 1956. Okay, now Lee, this next picture, if you would pull that up for us, this is from 1957, and it is a headline that says the 5th anniversary rolls around for the Rocky Mount Children's Museum. And it says, here's an exterior view of the Rocky Mount Children's Museum, which attracts many thousands each year to Sunset Park. With some kind of support from the Virginia Guild, this new home of the museum was completed in 1954. I'm not sure exactly where the museum started out. But as you see by the headline, it refers to it as the 5th anniversary. This, I actually caught the date of this newspaper appearance, of this article and this picture, and it was 1957. So obviously that's only 3 years between 1954 when it was completed and 1957 when this picture appeared. So I'm guessing before this building was built, there was either another building there or the museum operated temporarily out of another facility. Oh, we got a call. Maybe someone knows the answer to that question. Hello, caller, you on the air? Oh, hello, caller, you on the air?
Hey, Rand, how you doing?
Hey, my friend, good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm going to start off by saying, first of all, I'm sorry to hear about your dad. We were, best of friends.
He thought a world of you, Randy. He sure did, and I thank you, buddy. I appreciate the sentiment.
Tell you what, but the old Children's Museum down at Sunset Park, I remember going in there as a child back in the late 50s, early 50s, and there was a shrunken head in there,
from Africa or somewhere?
Yeah, from Ghana or somewhere like that. There was a shrunken head.
I think I remember that too. I remember going in that museum myself as a child. It had a lot of neat things in there.
Yeah, and they had a stuffed alligator in there, just some really neat stuff. But that was down there at the end of Dawson Street, right? Not too far from where the city pool. Well, there's no more city pool either, is it?
No, there's not. Yeah, generally in the area there, kind of up a little bit from where that skateboard park is now, as I recall. There was a monkey cages there, and kind of over behind the monkey cages where the museum was, as I recall. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, the monkey cages were right off of Sunset Drive down there
River
where
Drive.
where the basketball goals are now.
Right. Uh-huh.
But then right to the right of that was the museum.
That's right.
Side of it was over by the monkey bars, and the front side of it, I think, was Dawson Street, where the
Where the building was?
all the apartments down there that are called.
Yeah. Dawson Place, I think is the name of that street. Riverside Apartments.
Yeah, that's it. And I was thinking that the flood back in '99 ended up getting the museum and they had to tear it down.
It did. It got all that stuff. It sure did. Sadly, it was all too far gone to save it or recover anything. It was all destroyed by the flood. Hurricane Floyd. That was it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in fact, it's been 22 years now.
Yep.
Man, how time flies.
Sure does. Rand, it's good to hear from you, buddy.
Randy, it's so good seeing you, man. Holler at me, okay?
I will do that. You take care of yourself here.
All
right, we'll see you. Okay. All righty. So I tell you what, Lee, bring it back to me. This is a good time for us to take our first commercial break of the evening. Got a lot more pictures to show you folks. We'll be right back after these words from our sponsor. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more Way Back Wednesday in just a minute.
Sponsored by Flora's Glass and Mirror Company. Servicing the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.
I'm Daniel Moss, owner of Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service. We offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family. And we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
When faced with special care needs for elderly or disabled loved ones, families want compassionate, comforting care. That's Tender Touch Home Care Services' goal, providing the level of care we would expect for our own. With over 10 years of home care excellence, Tender Touch provides an array of services that keeps your loved one at home. From personal care, light housekeeping, errands, and meal preparation, to our private duty care program, which combines all of our home care offerings in one package.
Tender Touch Home Care Services, where your needs are our concern.
You're now watching Wayback Wednesday, sponsored by Flora's Glass and Mirror Company, servicing the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.
And we're back. Folks, if you just tuned in, you're watching Way Back Wednesday. I'm Randy Adcock. So glad you could be with us tonight. Before the break, we were talking about some activities and things that used to be available in Rocky Mount that sadly no longer are. The Riding Academy out behind the city lake out there was something I didn't know anything about. I remember that there were several homes back there and knew some residents back there, but I was never aware that there was a Riding Academy that took place back there. Much less one that was sponsored by the city of Rocky Mount. So that was news to me. The West Mount Harvest Festival was something else I was totally unaware of. We've talked on prior shows about the harvest festivals and how popular they were all over the country, in fact, and certainly Eastern North Carolina had our share. But I never knew that West Mount had a harvest festival too, at least one. Now, whether it was a recurring event year after year, I don't know, but they had one that took place in 1956. 1958, in December, in fact, December 12th, 1958, a blizzard, a veritable blizzard blew through Rocky Mount, and from all indications it was a whale of a storm, dumped something like 16 inches of snow on Rocky Mount. And I have to admit, this was before my time. I was not thought about 1958. If I was, I hadn't made it out to the world yet anyway. But in any case, this next picture was taken in December 12th, as I said, 1958 here in Rocky Mount. And Lee, if you would go ahead and put picture number 6 up on the screen for us. And this was just a neat, with winter around the corner, you know, Christmas around right around the corner too. This is at the height of the storm. It says, this photo taken at the Sunset Church Street crossing at the height of yesterday's young blizzard. Above the storm, going at full blast, some 16 inches of snow were dumped on Rocky Mount as the snow fell during the day at the rate of 1/2 inch per hour in the 19-degree weather. So not only did we get a lot of snow, it was a cold, cold day. Some of you probably remember this, and I would imagine some of this snow was still around Christmas Day. I mean, this took place on December the 12th, so, I don't know, that would have been 13 days. My guess is probably it melted by the time Christmas rolled around, but certainly it gave everybody the spirit of Christmas and a white Christmas at that, even if it wasn't still here by Christmas Day. But that's a lot of snow, 16 inches, and in the article that I saw that would appear with this picture, said there was more snow on the way. So I don't know how much more snow we got that year, but certainly that was a blizzard especially for this part of the country anyway. Now up north they measure blizzards in feet of snow, but around here if you get 16 inches of snow, that qualifies as a Eastern North Carolina blizzard by anybody's terms. All right, Lee, let's go ahead if we could then. The next picture is from 1958 also, and this caught my eye because every week when I come to the station to do this show, for those that may not be aware, the station is out here located on the Wesleyan College campus, 301 out here. And so every Wednesday, I should say, when I come to the station to do the show, I pass by, I pull into Wesleyan College first of all, and this picture right here is actually from October of 1958, and it's the groundbreaking for the initial steps to build Wesleyan College. And I didn't realize that the college groundbreaking took place in 1958, but things must have rolled pretty quickly from the time this picture was taken, where they were just turning over the ground, because Lee, if you would, let's go to the next picture. As I said, this was in October of '58, and in the same month that the prior picture was taken, I found this picture a little bit later date, and it says the first students posed for pictures, and these two students had enrolled in Wesleyan College, obviously before it was even built. And I don't know if they held classes somewhere else before the buildings, I should say, were constructed, and before the college was actually located here on site. But in any case, these two young people here were the first two students. One was from Greenville, and I think the other was actually, can you zoom on that a little bit, Lee? I did not print this particular picture off. That's a little difficult to read. I see Dickie Moore of Rocky Mount and Barbara, it looks like Seifert, of Richmond. That's what I was trying to see. Never mind, Lee. So one student from Rocky Mount, Mr. Dickie Moore, and the young lady was from Richmond, Virginia, I'm guessing. Came down here, enrolled in Wesleyan College in 1958. And I'm not sure when the college officially opened up its doors for students here on campus, but in '58 they were already enrolling students. Now, let's go to the next picture, if you would, Lee. This picture, and we'll come back to Wesleyan College briefly, but I got myself out of order when I was getting these pictures together tonight, so I apologize for being out of order. This picture was actually, as you see the caption, it says, on an island, flooded Stony Creek isolates new building recently leased by National Cash Register Company for local office in the Old Country Club area just off Nashville Highway. The water didn't actually pour into the building, but came close. Creeks in the Tar River were subsiding today. Now this was from April of 1964, and my earliest recollection of the NCR location was a little bit east of here on Sunset Avenue in the same general area now where, oh gee, what's there? The drugstore, Walgreens drugstore. And if I'm not mistaken, as someone who remembers this better than I do, I believe after NCR moved out, Pizza Inn moved in this same building. I believe this is the same building that for many years housed Pizza Inn. But I don't remember NCR being in this building. I remember them being up on Sunset. Oh, we got a caller. Maybe someone can remember this. Hello, caller, you on the air?
All right. That site that you're looking at right there now, the Pizza Inn in Rocky Mount had its first place. I think it dates back to 1964.
Mm-hmm.
And it was down there in that low bottom place when they opened the first Pizza Inn in Rocky Mount. It was an instant success. It was owned by Odell Searcy and his wife Corinne, and their partners were Lee and Lib Bozeman.
Right.
And they had a business there that was widely accepted for young adults and whatever. And that's where that site location is right there you're looking at.
Well, I thought it was, and I thought I recognized the building, but this picture was actually dated. I pulled it out of the, April of 1964, and I forgot the exact date, but this picture was from April 1964. So I'm guessing very shortly after this picture was taken, they moved, and then Pizza Inn came in after them.
That's right. There's documentation on the walls in the current Pizza Inn over there on Hunter Hill Road.
Mm-hmm.
Depicts the first location of the Pizza Inn in Rocky Mount. And it was, I think, 1964. It was the first place in Rocky Mount where you could get fresh pizza crust available.
And a cold beer.
And that's where it happened at. Cold draft beer.
Yes, sir.
And that's where it happened. And in those years, in the 60s, when that Pizza Inn was there, the crowd in there was so intense on Friday and Saturday night that the fire marshal kept somebody on site not to let too many people get in there. And when the crowd got excessive, they wouldn't let anybody else enter the building until someone left.
Well, right. I remember Pizza Inn being here. I actually went in there a few times myself.
You could walk on the heads of the people in that place of business on Friday and Saturday night in the mid-'60s when I was a college student.
They did a booming business for a number of years. It was in the mid-'70s.
Robust.
Yeah, when I went there, it was in the mid-'70s, and it was still a rock and rolling place then. They kept a big crowd. Okay, buddy. Appreciate you. All right. So that was, as I said, this picture was taken April 1964. My guess is the flood is what persuaded NCR to leave this location and move over to the building that I remember them being in over on Sunset Avenue where Walgreens drugstore is now. And then sometime after that, in fact, of course, Pizza Inn moved in here, and they occupied this space for a long time, 15 years or better, I know, because I was going to Pizza Inn there in the 70s, and they were still operating there then. 99, of course, the building was flooded severely when Floyd came through, and I think there had been a pawn shop or some kind of little thrift store type place in there at that time. I think the Pizza Inn had long since moved out of there. But this was it's an area prone to flood, obviously. Right there, the creek was just all through the woods a little bit there, and a bit of a low area anyway, and prone to flooding. Pizza Hut itself flooded several times, as I recall. Okay, let's go ahead into the next picture. As I said, I got it out of order, and I apologize. This next picture, we're going back to Wesleyan College. This was March of 1965, and this was actually, as you can see in the background, by this time there are several buildings built, several structures of the college. It's been 7 years now since the college ground had been broken, buildings had been built, students were in here. But in 1965, construction began on the fountain. And that fountain is here today, as I ride by it every Wednesday night on the way to the station here. And it's a work is progressing on a decorative fountain at the head of Tyler Drive on Carolina Wesleyan College's campus. Frank E. Brown of Richmond is giving the fountain to the college. I don't know the story behind Mr. Frank Brown. There have been several over the years. I know of at least one today. Excuse me. I think there's been a few others, including the Sheriff Frank Brown at one time. So I'm not sure which Frank E. Brown this was, but it says of Richmond, so I'm guessing he was not any of the local Frank Browns. But in any case, 1965 was when the fountain construction, March of 65, they started. And Lee, if you would, let's go to the next picture, because in May of 1965, the fountain was finished, and here you are in all its grandeur. And it looks like to me, in fact, the caption it goes on to say, the latest oddities to the Carolina Wesleyan College campus is above being tested. The campus fountain was turned on for the first time Wednesday and quickly drew a crowd. Something about a 40-foot spray of water. I mean, that's pretty impressive. And it doesn't do that, obviously, we're testing it to see what it could do, I guess. But it's been in operation all this time since 1965, and it's still operating on a daily basis today. Okay. You know, we talked a couple of weeks ago about manufacturing in this area. We talked a little bit about the long manufacturing over in Tarboro and how they manufacture tractors and so forth over there. We talked about Bel Air Chevrolet had the retreading manufacturing business, selling retreaded tires, and there were others certainly over the years. You know, Abbott Laboratories, Hospira, whatever, and there's been this, you know, off and on, lots of manufacturing. I ran across one today, however, that I was not familiar with, or if I was, I'd forgotten about it. The next picture, if you would, Lee, pull this next one up. This was from 1965 also, and it says, work is underway, breaking ground at the 235-acre site for the Bates manufacturing plant. Phoenix Works is what it was called, and I'm not sure. I think I remember hearing something about this, and for some reason, South Rocky Mount, maybe South Church Street somewhere. I'm just not sure. I just couldn't put my finger on this. So if someone remembers Bates Manufacturing and where they were in Rocky Mount, give us a call. 407-1111 is the number. But I had intended to do a little more digging into this and try to find a little more information about it, and I got sidetracked with other things and never got a chance to go back and follow through on that. But this was from, again, March of 1965, and it was the groundbreaking for the Bates Manufacturing Company here in Rocky Mount. And another neat, interesting tidbit about this picture here, if you'll notice in the bottom right-hand corner, we got a call. Let's get this caller. Hello, caller, you're on the air. Caller, could you turn your TV down a minute and you can talk with me? Hello? Oh, I think we lost him. Okay. Sorry about that. Folks, if you do call in, just remember, just temporarily mute your television set or turn the volume down. There's an intentional delay in the broadcast, so when you call in, you're going to be a little bit of a delay, and your TV will pick that up. It'll echo back. Okay, let's get this call. Hello, caller. You're on the air. Hello, caller.
Bates Manufacturing was where Phillips Fibers is now. It was a real operation going on now, and later became Phillips Fibers.
So that was on Atlantic Avenue.
Yes.
Okay.
Bates Manufacturing Company.
And what did they build? What did they make out there?
It was fiber of some type. I don't recall.
Okay, I remember Phillips Fibers, but I did not remember Bates. Okay.
That was the predecessor to Phillips Fibers.
Gotcha. Okay, appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Okay, well there you go. I knew about Phillips Fibers. I knew someone used to work there, in fact, but I could not, for the life of me, place this Bates Manufacturing. So thank you, caller, for clearing that up for us. All right, Lee, if we could, then let's go to the next picture. This is from 1964. Oh, we got a caller here. Let's get this call first. Hello, caller, you on the air?
All right, when Phillips Fibers plant was built out there on Atlantic Avenue Extension, they were involved in the manufacture of polyester. That was a derivative of the cracking of crude oil, and it was put there by the Phillips Petroleum Company in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. And that's how the Enco and Nelson's maintenance got started right across the street from it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how that came into being.
So, I'm confused because the prior caller was saying that Bates Manufacturing was there, and then it became
Phillips Fibers, and it was, I don't know where the acquisition was, where Phillips Petroleum Company in Oklahoma bought it, but that building that is still there today, that's about 7 stories tall, it was there for the manufacture of synthetic polyester yarn.
Okay. So you're thinking it was, the building was built, you're saying it was built by Phillips Fibers?
I don't know about that.
Okay, because the other caller, I think he was saying that it was built by Bates Manufacturing, and then perhaps afterward, Phillips Fibers acquired the building. I think is probably what happened. Okay. All right, I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
All righty. Okay, so let's go ahead and look back at that same picture we just had up on the screen there. This picture here was from 1964, and it's the MP Dawson office. And I kept looking at this building, and I kept looking at it, and something about it just kept drawing me in. And then I did a Google search for the address, because in the caption here it references the address as being at 149 Franklin Street, 149 Franklin Street. So I did a Google search on that address, and lo and behold, when I pulled the address up, it all became clear. In later years, if I'm not mistaken, in later years, this was the office that former Mayor Fred Turnage had, and it was on the corner of Franklin Street and Sunset Avenue. We got a call. Let's get this call. Hello, caller. You on the air?
Randy, a little bit more about the Phillips Fibers project.
Yes, sir.
That was built in 1965. I graduated from Rocky Mount Senior High in June of '65 and worked the summer on the construction of that project, which was Phillips Fibers.
Okay.
General contracting company Dickerson from Monroe, North Carolina, built that project.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, they had another project up the road a little bit, which turned out to be a Barker Lounger.
Okay. So where does Bates fit into all of this?
Well, I think that was just probably an early beginning. I think somewhere along the line it changed from Bates to Phillips Fibers.
Okay.
I think both are correct. Bates was involved probably in the early beginning.
Okay.
The photo you're looking at was early on in the construction, obviously the site work.
Right.
And it took a while to build the building, so I don't know the time frame of when it switched from Bates to Phillips.
Okay. All righty. Well, Bob, I appreciate the information, buddy.
You're welcome.
Have a good evening. Okay. All right, I tell you what, Lee, if you would bring it back to me, I think this is a good time for us to take our next commercial break. Folks, if you need to grab yourselves a little snack or visit a little restaurant or whatever you need to do, take care of that business right now, and we'll be right back with more Wayback Wednesday.
Area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.
I'm Daniel Moss, owner of Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory. as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service. We offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family. And we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
When faced with special care needs for elderly or disabled loved ones, families want compassionate, comforting care. That's Tender Touch Home Care Services' goal, providing the level of care we would expect for our own. With over 10 years of home care excellence, Tender Touch provides an array of services that keeps your loved one at home. From personal care, light housekeeping, errands, and meal preparation, to our private duty care program, which combines all of our home care offerings in one package.
Tender Touch Home Care Services, where your needs are our concern.
You're now watching Wayback Wednesday, sponsored by Flores Glass and Mirror Company, servicing the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.
And we're back. Folks, thanks for joining us tonight. We're looking, before the break, we had a picture up on the screen. And Lee, if you would, put that picture back up, picture number 13. As I said before the break, this building, when I looked at it, I knew it looked familiar to me and I couldn't figure out why. The caption reads, "New building, Mickey Dawson Jr. and his father, M.P. Dawson, have opened their new office at 149 North Franklin Street." Oh, we got a call. Let's get this call. Hello, caller.
Hey, Randy.
Hello there. How are you?
Okay, this is Randall Drone, Buck Drone's son.
Hey, how are you, sir?
I'm all right. Well, you remember Buck Drone wrote a lot of trivia books and everything.
Yes, sir, I do.
Well, I wrote some what you call trivia stories.
Okay.
Short stories. And I've got one sitting right here in my lap. It's about 2 pages. How would you like to hear it?
Go for it.
Here it goes.
Okay.
This is called The Christmas Train.
Okay.
It was December 24th in Wheeling, West Virginia. The air was crisp, snow was falling, some of the local coal trains were still running. Demand for coal was high back in the late 1940s. Business was brisk that cold morning as Mr. McFadden's Hardware. Hot-selling items were calico, woolens, boots, and even Lionel trains. Mr. McFadden carried a large stock of freight sets, a few passenger sets, and several shelves were well stocked with accessories including transformers, signals, loading equipment, stations, etc. Speaking of trains, the toot of whistles could be heard nearby along with the other chug-a-lugs associated with those magnificent Baldwin engines that rumbled around town. Mrs. O'Hurley He just stepped through the door with rosy cheeks glowing and an armful of presents for kids and family evident. All of a sudden, the door swung open and in quickly stepped old Tom Shannon, brushing the snow off a slightly tattered lumber jacket. He was a local miner in his mid-30s, tall, rather gaunt, and in need of a little dental work. He was well thought of around town as a hard-working, honest, able-type guy. He whispered to Mrs. Smith, a sales lady who worked there, if he could talk to Mr. McFadden for a moment privately. "Well, certainly, Tom, just a minute." Mr. McFadden calmly stepped around the counter and said, "Yes, Tom, what is it?" Tom rather nervously told him that it was Christmas Eve and that his 9-year-old son badly wanted a train for Christmas, but he didn't have any money to buy one and wanted to know if Mr. McFadden would let him have one on credit. Well, the 50th gentleman thought for a second and asked Tom if he worked at the coal mine on Saturdays. Tom replied he had to work on Saturday once in a while, but he was off most of the time. The owner then asked Tom if he could come in and work for him for 4 Saturdays, putting up stock, driving the delivery truck, etc. Tom smiled and said he most certainly would. Next page. Mr. McFadden then stepped into the adjacent room and picked out a nice freight set and even grabbed a few pieces of extra track, a pair of electric switches, and even a crossing gate to go along with it. He walked down and set it on the counter. Tom's eyes lit up almost as bright as the lights on one of the trains. He grabbed the boxes up and with a nod of the head and out into the snow he went. That night after Bobby and Nancy were asleep, Tom and his wife sneaked into the pantry and rushed out with the boxes. After a glance at the instruction sheets provided, they started laying down track and connecting wires. After about an hour, a Lionel number 2115 steam loco with 6 freight cars tugging along behind it and smoking away. The remote control switches and crossing gates performed flawlessly. Christmas morning, Bobby and Nancy dashed into the den where the Christmas tree was set up, and after a little tutelage from Tom, that 2015 was soon rolling nonstop. Mary had prepared a fine dinner complete with turkey, dressing, potatoes, beans, yams, and pineapple cake for dessert. The train set didn't have to wait very long before it started pulling away from the station once again. The next Saturday, Tom, as promised, reported to work at the hardware store, making deliveries, putting up stock, sweeping the floor, etc. In fact, his work was so good that Mr. McFadden hired him to continue to work at his store well after the train set was paid for. The end.
Your father will be awfully proud of you. He sure would.
I've written about 80 of these.
Well,
I've got some that are set in Rocky Mount. I've got one good one I might read sometime. It's a 1957 Rocky Mount.
Well,
A guy 20 years old buys a motorcycle.
Well, look, I thank you for calling in. I really appreciate that. And thanks for watching the show. I appreciate your viewership, too.
I got one more little thing, and that's about the Howard House.
Okay.
Over there. I remember going into the Howard House back when I was very small.
Mm-hmm.
It was a cafeteria, and the cafeteria line went all the way from the left all the way across the room to the right where they had a cash register.
Uh-huh.
And the food there was pretty good, best I remember. Okay, well, that's all I have for tonight.
All right, buddy. Thank you here. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. All right. Yeah, Mr. Buck Drawn, be proud of that right there. I'm positive. Okay, Lee, so this picture here, as I said, this was MP Dawson's building. It was located at 149 North Franklin Street. And the write-up here says the 52-year-old agency, and this was, by the way, this picture was taken and appeared in the paper in April of 1964. But it said the 52-year-old agency was in the Sagamore Club building at 146 North Main Street for 18 years. The new building has a flat sloop roof, an exterior of wooden paneling, old brick, and tinted glass. The interior of the 1,200 square foot building has panel in walnut. In addition to the private offices for the father and son partners, the building has a reception room, restrooms, and 2 additional offices. So I'm not sure when Mr. Dawson and his son vacated the premise, but I'm fairly certain this was the same building that former Mayor Fred Turnage had. And Lee, if you would, let's go to the next picture. I did a Google search on 149 North Franklin Street, and this is that location today. Off to the left, you see across the street there would be the Goodyear Tire Center, I think it is. The old Sears building would be to your right. But this was a recent picture from Google Maps, Google Street Maps, I should say. And right there on that corner, I remember, was Mayor Fred Turnage's office for many, many years. And I always assumed that he had built that building, but apparently it was built by Mr. Mickey Dawson and his father, Mr. M.P. Dawson Sr. So anyway, a little bit of history there about the buildings in Rocky Mount. Okay, Lee, let's go to the next picture if we could then. And some of you may remember this. This was If you remember, we talked last week about these landscapes, and this was something that Charlie Killebrew started off back in the late 1940s. Apparently, at some time, Charlie got out of it, and Mr. Larry Tucker took over. And I didn't realize that until I started finding these pictures with the side tag there of Larry Tucker. But anyway, this was taken out there at City Lake Park, around one of the oak trees out there, it looks like. And it's talking about the concrete benches. It says all that rock on the ground in the park next to City Lake didn't grow there. The rock used to be benches in the park, but alas, the benches have tumbled. Until the benches are put together again, you'll have to sit on the ground or bring your own bench. I seem to have a vague recollection of there being some concrete benches out there at the City Lake Park at some time, but they're long gone now, of course. And so anyway, this was from 1965. All right, Lee, let's go to the next picture, also from 1965. This was actually, many of you remember down on the corner of Franklin Street and Western Avenue when they built the new People's Bank, the original People's Bank being over on Main Street, on the corner of Main Street and Tarver Street. And then in 1965, they built a new People's Bank. And this picture appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram in February of 1965. And what you're looking at here is them hoisting the door to the vault down into the basement where the vault was in that bank. And the captain says, men hold to guide ropes while a crane lowers a 12.5-ton vault door into the basement of the new People's Bank building at Franklin and Western. The door is for the main vault located in the basement of the new building. If I'm not mistaken, I seem to recall here and there were two vaults in this building. This was the main vault here, and that was not too uncommon for there to be two vaults in bank. Let me get this call here. Hello, caller, you on the air? Oh, hello, caller, you there?
Yeah, how about you?
Yeah, I'm here. What's going on tonight?
Hey, man, you remember that duck down there at City Lake that was a cross between a chicken and a duck?
A cross between a chicken and a duck?
Yeah.
I can't say I do. What about him?
He was real mean. He had his own bench down there. It was for everything was paved over. You know, we used to go down there fishing in the 60s and early 70s. And this duck was sitting down there, and he was part chicken. He had a gizzard. He was really ill, and he'd snap at you and stuff.
Oh, wow. Well, you know, I'm sure I saw him because I used to spend a lot of time down there fishing and hanging out down there at the park and down at Sunset Park too. But off the top of my head, I can't say I remember him, but I'm sure I saw him.
He's probably still alive somewhere.
Yeah, he probably did. Meanness don't go away. All right, buddy. Appreciate that.
All right.
We'll see you. Bye-bye. Okay. All right, we got time for one or two more, Lee. Let's go ahead then to the next picture. This is from 1962. And this is actually, I'll read the caption. It says, Andy Taylor Wright, manager of Municipal Pool, and Jake Rosenblum. There's a name we've talked about a number of times in past shows. Jake Rosenblum, chairman of Water Safety Committee, are shown presenting Red Cross certificates to a few of the 71 people who have passed the beginners, intermediate, and junior life-saving and swimming courses. The youngsters shown are left to right, Susan Wilson, Patricia Stussy, and Mike Weatherford. You know, if you remember here 3 or 4 weeks ago, we had a show we talked about the boat races that used to take place on Tar River down there by Sunset Park. Jake Rosenblum was very active in that. He used to race boats, I understand. And, of course, in later years, he owned a couple of retail stores around Rocky Mount. But this was in, as I said, 1962. And he was very active in the city and participating in this, getting kids life-saving certificates for the Red Cross. Who knew? Okay. This next picture, Lee, if you would. This was also from 1965. And this is when they moved the Rocky Mount city limits. I'm going to read this caption to you because it says, moving outward. City workers were caught by the photographer Tuesday as they moved the sign welcoming visitors into Rocky Mount to the new location of the new city limits on North Carolina 43 at Goose Branch near Stony Creek Fire Department. The city limit was on Tar River at Rocky Mount Mills. The City Council last Thursday annexed two large areas, which increased the population by 650 persons and territory by 965 acres. So Goose Creek, if I'm not mistaken, is that little creek you come to if you come over the Tar River Bridge on Falls Road and go around the curve there. There by the movie theater, the little creek, if you will, that goes, it actually flows underneath the road there. I believe that's Goose Creek, and that's where the city limit was moved to in 1965. Folks, that's going to do it for us tonight. We've run slam out of time. Lee, bring it back to me if you would. We didn't get through not quite a little over halfway the pictures. I've got some more. We'll get to those next week. I want to thank all the callers who called in and shared your memories with us and your thoughts. We really appreciate your participation in the show. It always means more to me when you call in and share your thoughts and memories about our city and its history. So thanks for those that called in, and thanks for watching, folks. I really enjoy being with you each week. So thanks again. Have yourselves a great week. Take care of yourselves and be kind to each other, folks. We'll see you next week with more Wayback Wednesday. Good night.
You're now watching Wayback Wednesday, sponsored by Flores Glass and Mirror Company, servicing the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.